Imagine walking into a room filled with heavy silence, a silence that echoes the weight of unpaid bills, broken trust, and lingering enemies. In that moment, you wish for a miracle, a way to lighten the load pressing on your heart. Today, I invite you into a vision that is both symbolic and transformative. The phrase, "Put salt here, your debts will disappear, your enemies will fade," is not just a call to superstition, but a reminder that small, deliberate actions can carry profound meaning. Salt has always represented preservation, cleansing, and strength. When we place salt with intention, it becomes a metaphor for drawing boundaries, protecting peace, and reclaiming control over what once seemed overwhelming. When we speak of salt, we are not only speaking of something found in every kitchen or on every table. We are speaking of a symbol that has carried deep meaning throughout cultures and history. Salt has always represented purity, preservation, and healing. Just as it protects food from decay, it reminds us that life can be protected from corruption and heaviness. Imagine holding a handful of salt and realizing it carries a story of cleansing. That is the very story I want you to carry into your heart today. There are moments when life feels heavy with debts that are not only financial but emotional and spiritual. You may owe money to banks or promises to people, and you may feel trapped in patterns that seem impossible to escape. At the same time, you may carry debts of guilt or regret that weigh even more than the financial kind. Salt teaches us that the first step to dissolving these invisible chains is purification. Purification begins in the mind and in the spirit. Before any debt disappears outwardly, it must first loosen inwardly. Cleansing your mindset means refusing to allow fear and shame to control your vision of tomorrow. Fear whispers that you will always struggle, while shame convinces you that you are unworthy of freedom. Salt, when placed with intention, tells a different story. It whispers that the past does not have to contaminate the future. It reminds you that purity is possible if you choose to step into it. The act of cleansing your thoughts is a sacred declaration that you are ready to rise. You may wonder how cleansing the mind could possibly change practical problems like debt, but consider this: when the mind is clouded with guilt and negativity, it becomes nearly impossible to see opportunity. You miss solutions because you are staring at problems. You overlook possibilities because you are blinded by fear. A purified mindset is clear like fresh water. It makes room for creativity and strategy to flourish. Salt does not dissolve instantly when placed in water, and neither will the weight you carry. Yet as the salt begins to spread slowly and evenly, so will the clarity in your life. Small steps toward cleansing your thinking create ripples of transformation. You begin to see what once seemed hidden. You discover discipline where once there was despair. You move from asking "why me" to declaring "watch me." The act of cleansing transforms confusion into courage. When you purify your mindset, you give yourself permission to stop rehearsing failure. Many of us replay mistakes over and over until they define us. It is like constantly tasting the bitterness of a wound that should have healed long ago. Salt reminds us that wounds heal faster when they are cleansed. The sting of salt is real, but it is also the sting of recovery. It is a signal that the infection is leaving and the body is reclaiming strength. So it is with the mind. Debt can also be spiritual in the sense that we hold on to grudges and unforgiveness. These are invisible debts we demand others to pay, yet they drain us more than they free us. Purification of mindset requires letting go of these hidden demands. Forgiveness is the salt that cleanses relationships and frees the heart. When you forgive, you are not denying pain, but you are choosing not to let it poison your future. You are saying, I will not carry this debt any longer. That is true strength. Think of salt scattered across the earth. It does not choose where it lands, but wherever it rests, it brings its nature of preservation. In the same way, your purified mindset will preserve the good things in your life. It will protect your dreams from decay. It will guard your joy from the erosion of negativity. This does not mean problems vanish overnight. It means you are stronger and clearer to deal with them, and strength is what makes debts lose their grip. Many people ask for miracles, yet forget that the greatest miracle begins inside the mind. When your thoughts are heavy with doubt, you cannot recognize the doors that are opening for you. But when your thoughts are cleansed, your vision changes. Suddenly you see a way where before there was none. Suddenly you believe again, and that belief attracts solutions. Salt is simple, yet its symbolism is profound. It tells us clarity is the ground for miracles. To purify the mindset is to prepare the soil of your life for seeds of breakthrough. No farmer would scatter seed on a field full of weeds and expect abundant harvest. Likewise, no person can expect abundance while their mind is cluttered with fear. Salt is the spiritual gardener of the soul. It clears the ground. It makes space. It tells the weeds of doubt and despair to wither, so the seeds of hope can grow tall and strong. This cleansing also requires courage, because facing your inner debts can be uncomfortable. Just like salt may burn on a wound, so does the truth burn when we confront it. Yet healing only comes after truth is embraced. The sting of honesty is the sign that freedom is near. Those who dare to cleanse their thoughts will walk lighter. Those who refuse will continue to carry loads that were never meant for them. The choice belongs to you. Let us not forget that purity is not perfection. Purity is progress toward clarity. It is a continual act of renewing the mind. You may stumble and you may fall, but cleansing means you rise again. Salt reminds us that even when mixed with impurities, it retains its nature. Likewise, even when life surrounds you with negativity, your true self can still shine through. You only need to return again and again to the act of inner cleansing. With every cleansing step, you will find that debts no longer define your identity. They may exist, but they do not imprison. You begin to see them as challenges to overcome, not curses to endure. You take action with clarity instead of panic. You breathe deeply instead of gasping under pressure. This is the miracle of the purified mind. It changes how you approach life, and in turn, life begins to respond differently. So when you hear the phrase, "put salt here," your debts will disappear. Understand the wisdom behind it. It is not about superstition, but about intention. It is about choosing purity over chaos. It is about cleansing your mind until you can see light where darkness once ruled. The salt is a symbol, but your choice is the true power. Every day you are invited to choose cleansing. Every day you are invited to choose clarity. Carry this truth with you as you face your struggles. Let the symbol of salt remind you that nothing has the power to corrode your future unless you surrender it. Place your salt not only on the table but also in your thoughts. Let it dissolve fear, let it cleanse shame, let it heal wounds, and let it remind you that you were created to walk free and not bound. The debts you fear will no longer dominate your life when you purify the space inside you. The enemies you dread will no longer have control when your spirit is strong. The obstacles you see will no longer intimidate you when your mind is clear. So choose today to place salt in your heart as a reminder of strength. Choose today to cleanse your vision and step forward with courage, because purity of mindset is the first victory, and that victory belongs to you. When we think about the simple act of placing salt, it may seem ordinary, but in truth it carries a message of extraordinary discipline. Salt does not leap or shout, yet it transforms whatever it touches. In the same way, our lives are shaped not by random luck, but by the small choices we place with intention. Debt does not appear in a single moment, and freedom from it will not appear in a single moment either. Every step requires strategy and steady action. It is through discipline that transformation begins. Consider the person who pours salt on food without care. The meal becomes ruined because there was no thought behind the action. This teaches us that strategy must guide even the smallest steps. When you decide to purify your finances or heal from emotional weight, you cannot afford to act without purpose. Every decision matters, whether it is how you spend money or how you spend energy. The act of placing salt is symbolic of placing decisions with care. That is how freedom is built. Some people believe that great victories come only from dramatic changes, but the truth is the opposite. Great victories are the result of consistent small choices repeated with discipline. Salt works in silence, yet it preserves food for days and weeks. In the same way, your quiet acts of consistency will preserve your progress. Paying one bill on time matters. Saying no to one unnecessary expense matters. Refusing one negative thought matters. These are the grains of salt that keep your life intact. When you think of salt, you realize it never apologizes for its presence. It simply does its work. In the same way, you must stop apologizing for being disciplined. Some may call you strict or even boring when you choose to save instead of spend. Some may question your choices when you stay focused on your path. But discipline is not about pleasing others, it is about preserving your destiny. Every choice to stay firm is a choice to honor your future. Debt is not only financial, it is also emotional and mental. You may feel indebted to expectations placed on you by others. You may feel pressured to live up to images that do not reflect your true self. Breaking those cycles requires the discipline of saying no. Salt never tries to be sugar, and you must never try to be someone else just to satisfy the world. Strategy means aligning your actions with your truth. Discipline means protecting that alignment even when it is hard. The simple act of placing salt can be seen as creating a line of separation. You are saying this is where the boundary stands. In life, you must also draw boundaries with intention. If debt came through reckless spending, then strategy requires controlled spending. If pain came through unhealthy relationships, then discipline requires healthy boundaries. It is not enough to hope for freedom. You must place the salt of strategy and discipline exactly where the struggle lies. That is how you reclaim control. Strategy is like the pattern of scattering salt evenly rather than in clumps. If you attack your challenges with random bursts of energy and then collapse in exhaustion, nothing will change. But if you spread your efforts evenly and consistently, the results will be lasting. This is true for finances, health, relationships, and personal growth. Do not underestimate the quiet power of steady choices. They will build walls of strength around your life. They will dissolve debts of fear and doubt. Salt also reminds us of preservation and endurance. Discipline does not always give immediate results, but it protects you for the long run. Just as salt keeps food safe from decay, your disciplined habits keep your dreams safe from destruction. That savings account that seems small now becomes a fortress in the future. That moment of restraint today becomes a foundation tomorrow. Strategy preserves hope when others surrender it. Discipline preserves strength when others waste it. Preservation is victory. You cannot talk about salt without remembering that it is valuable in every culture. It was once traded as currency, because people recognized its worth. Discipline and strategy in your life are also valuable currencies. Employers value them. Relationships value them. Your future self values them. When you live without strategy, you spend your life recklessly. When you live with discipline, you invest your life wisely. The returns of such investment are freedom and peace. Some people resist discipline because they confuse it with punishment. But discipline is not punishment, it is preparation. Salt does not punish the food, it enhances it. In the same way, discipline enhances your life. When you plan your day with focus, you are not limiting yourself, you are expanding what you can achieve. When you choose to study instead of wasting time, you are not punishing yourself, you are equipping yourself. Discipline is the soil where greatness grows. Think of salt as invisible once it is dissolved in water. You may not see it, yet you taste its effect. Strategy is often the same. People may not see your daily discipline, but they will notice its results. They will wonder why you seem calm while others panic. They will notice your stability while others collapse. They will see your growth while others remain stuck. What they cannot see is the consistent discipline you placed in silence. That is the power of hidden strategy. The debts that appear impossible often shrink when you apply consistent effort. Imagine a mountain of stone being eroded by drops of water. At first, nothing seems to change, yet over time the mountain itself bends to the persistence of those drops. In the same way, your mountain of debt and fear will bow to the persistence of your discipline. Do not look at the size of the problem. Look at the strength of your consistency. That is what creates miracles. Salt cannot be scattered without intention, or else it loses its effect. In life, intention is everything. Strategy is not about random action, but about targeted effort. You must know why you are doing what you are doing. When you save money, it must be connected to a vision of freedom. When you exercise discipline, it must be connected to a vision of health. Without vision, discipline feels like punishment. With vision, discipline feels like power. Every choice you make is like placing a grain of salt on the path of your future. One choice may feel small, but many choices create a powerful foundation. This is why you cannot neglect the daily disciplines. The debt you fear today is the result of yesterday's choices. The freedom you will celebrate tomorrow is the result of today's choices. Strategy demands responsibility for every step. Discipline demands courage to walk those steps. And both lead to transformation. If you ever doubt the power of discipline, remember that salt cannot be replaced by anything else. Sugar cannot preserve food. Water cannot preserve food. Only salt can do what salt does. Likewise, no shortcut can replace discipline. No easy trick can replace strategy. Quick fixes may feel good for a moment, but they do not bring lasting change. Only the steady grains of discipline preserve freedom. Only the consistent acts of strategy bring true release. The world often glorifies comfort over discipline, but salt reminds us that preservation requires strength. When you choose discipline, you may feel different from the crowd. You may walk paths that others mock. You may carry habits that others dismiss. Yet in the end you will stand when others have fallen. You will walk free when others remain bound. Strategy is not about being popular, it is about being purposeful. Discipline is not about pleasing now, it is about protecting later. Imagine your debts like stains on a surface. If you try to scrub with water alone, the stains remain. But when you apply salt with patience, the surface begins to clear. The same principle applies to life. Without discipline, problems remain no matter how much you wish them away. But with discipline, solutions begin to take shape. The act may sting at first, but it creates cleanliness. What once looked permanent begins to fade. That is the gift of strategic action. We must also recognize that discipline is not about harsh rules, but about gentle consistency. Salt never rushes, it simply does its work quietly. In the same way, you do not need to pressure yourself into extreme measures. Begin with small intentional steps. Pay one small debt. Save one small amount. Refuse one unhealthy habit. Over time, these small steps will grow into large victories. The salt of discipline is not in grand gestures, but in faithful repetition. When you place salt in your life, you are declaring, I choose order over chaos. You are saying, I will not let fear dictate my choices. You are reminding yourself that every grain of discipline matters. Even when results are slow, you continue. Even when others doubt, you continue. Even when you feel weary, you continue. Because you know that discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you are destined to be. The symbol of salt teaches us that transformation is not magic but process. Your debts do not disappear because of luck. They disappear because you chose to act with intention. They dissolve because you scattered discipline consistently over time. They fade because you applied strategy with focus. Just like food is preserved by salt, your dreams are preserved by discipline. Just like decay is stopped by salt, your failures are stopped by strategy. This is truth, so place your salt with intention. Scatter it where your struggles try to grow. Let it preserve your hope. Let it strengthen your spirit. Let it dissolve the weight that once seemed unshakable. Choose discipline, choose strategy, because every grain you place is a step closer to freedom, and that freedom belongs to you. When we speak of enemies, we are not only speaking of people, but also of forces that rise against us. An enemy can be doubt that whispers you will never rise. An enemy can be fear that freezes you before you act. An enemy can be insecurity that convinces you that you are not enough. Salt reminds us of boundaries and protection. When we place it with intention, we are declaring that what opposes us will no longer control us. The fading of enemies is not about them vanishing into thin air. It is about your spirit becoming so strong that they lose their power. A purified mind already sets the stage, and disciplined choices already build the foundation. When your inner strength grows, what once looked like giants become shadows. Your enemies may still speak, but their voices sound small. They may still stand, but they cannot stop you. Strength of spirit silences them without a word. Salt has always symbolized covenant and loyalty. When you place salt with intention, you are reminding yourself of your loyalty to peace. You are reminding yourself of your commitment to clarity. Enemies thrive when chaos rules, but they fade when peace surrounds you. The person who is calm in the storm is unshakable. That calm comes from inner resilience. It comes from the decision to protect your soul with the salt of strength. Think about how salt dissolves slowly when dropped in water. It does not fight loudly, yet its presence changes everything. That is how resilience works. You do not need to fight every enemy directly. You only need to remain steady until their influence dissolves. You cannot always stop others from plotting against you, but you can stop yourself from being shaken. Resilience is your greatest defense. It makes enemies lose their hold. Some enemies come in the form of people who doubt you or even mock your dreams. Their words can sting like arrows if you allow them inside. But when you fortify your spirit with resilience, their arrows break before they reach you. Salt teaches us that preservation is more powerful than attack. Instead of striking back, you protect what matters most. Your focus becomes a shield, your peace becomes armor. This is how enemies fade without battle. There are also enemies that live within, old failures that haunt your thoughts, regrets that replay like endless music. These enemies can be louder than anything outside. To overcome them, you must strengthen the inner voice that says, I am still worthy. Salt is a reminder that the past cannot decay the future if you preserve it with resilience. You cannot erase yesterday, but you can stop it from poisoning tomorrow. That is true victory. Enemies lose their power when you refuse to feed them. Just as salt stops decay by denying bacteria the space to grow, resilience denies enemies the attention they seek. Do not waste energy rehearsing their words. Do not waste energy replaying their actions. Focus on the path before you. When you rise higher, their voices will grow smaller. When you protect your mind, their shadows will vanish. Your attention is the food of your enemies. Salt also represents healing. Think of wounds that are cleaned with salt water. The sting is painful, but the healing follows. Enemies may wound you, but resilience heals you. You may feel pain, but the salt of strength keeps the wound from infection. Over time, you are stronger, not weaker, because of what you faced. The very scars that once reminded you of pain now remind you of endurance. This is how enemies fade into lessons. In history, armies once scattered salt across conquered lands to signify the end of resistance. In your life, scattering salt means declaring that the resistance of enemies will not stand. You are saying, I will not fight endlessly. I will preserve my peace. I will not waste my life in battles that do not build me. My enemies can roar, but I will remain firm. My enemies can scheme, but I will keep walking. That is the true victory of resilience. Every time you choose peace over anger, an enemy fades. Every time you choose focus over distraction, an enemy fades. Every time you choose forgiveness over bitterness, an enemy fades. Salt teaches us that victory is not always loud, but often silent. The quiet strength of a resilient heart defeats enemies more effectively than shouting. The steady calm of a clear mind defeats chaos without struggle. This is the wisdom of resilience. It is natural to feel afraid of enemies because they seem powerful at first glance. But remember that salt is small, and yet it changes everything. Your resilience may feel small, but its impact is immense. It does not take an army to defeat fear. It takes one steady heart. It does not take endless weapons to defeat insecurity. It takes one clear decision to keep going. Even the smallest grain of resilience can transform the entire atmosphere. Sometimes your enemies are not people or emotions, but circumstances, a failing business, a health struggle, a broken relationship. These challenges feel like enemies because they stand in your way, yet resilience teaches us to see them differently. They are not walls to stop you, but tests to strengthen you. Just as salt endures fire and still remains strong, you can endure trials and still remain whole. The circumstances may press you, but they cannot break you. The fading of enemies also means realizing that not every battle is yours to fight. Salt preserves what matters and lets the rest go. You must learn to let go of battles that drain you without purpose. Not every critic deserves your answer. Not every obstacle deserves your panic. Strategy means focusing your energy where it counts. Resilience means keeping calm when distractions surround you. Let go of battles that are beneath your destiny. Salt never tries to become more than what it is. Its power lies in its simplicity. Likewise, your resilience does not need to be dramatic. You do not need to prove your strength by shouting it. You simply need to remain consistent. A calm presence is louder than 100 angry voices. A steady walk is more powerful than 1,000 threats. Simplicity is your strength. It is the reason enemies fade when you refuse to complicate your soul. There is also a spiritual truth in salt. It was often used as an offering to symbolize permanence and unbreakable agreement. When you place salt with intention, you are entering a covenant with yourself. You are declaring, I will not let fear dictate my story. I will not let enemies rob my peace. I will not abandon resilience even when it feels hard. That covenant is sacred. It preserves your inner world no matter what comes against you. Think of how salt seasons food. Without it, meals are tasteless and dull. With it, everything comes alive. Resilience seasons your life in the same way. Without it, life feels bitter and heavy. With it, life regains flavor and joy. Enemies cannot take joy from you when resilience is strong. Challenges cannot steal meaning when resilience is alive. Your spirit becomes seasoned with strength, and that strength carries you forward. Your enemies may think they hold your future, but they do not. They may think they control your path, but they cannot. Only you hold the power of your resilience. Only you hold the choice to keep walking. Every time you rise again, you remind them that they are fading. Every time you smile in the storm, you remind them that their grip is broken. Every time you choose strength, you remind them that their end is near. Salt is a reminder that what is preserved cannot be destroyed. Your dreams preserved by resilience cannot be erased by enemies. Your peace preserved by resilience cannot be shattered by chaos. Your destiny preserved by resilience cannot be stolen by opposition. What salt preserves lasts, what resilience preserves stands. This is why enemies eventually fade. They cannot destroy what is protected with such strength. So when you hear the phrase, "put salt here and your enemies will fade," remember its meaning. It is not superstition but wisdom. It is the truth that resilience defeats fear. It is the reality that calm overcomes chaos. It is the declaration that enemies cannot rule a person who protects their spirit. Place your salt with faith. Place your salt with intention. Place your salt as a symbol of resilience, and when you do, the enemies that once seemed impossible will fade like shadows before the morning sun. And that victory belongs to you. In the journey of salt, we have discovered the power of purification, the strength of discipline, and the victory of resilience. Each grain may appear small, yet it carries the wisdom of centuries and the promise of transformation. When you choose to cleanse your mind, you release the weight of fear and shame. When you choose discipline, you build a foundation that no storm can shake. When you choose resilience, you rise above enemies until they fade into nothing. Salt teaches us that greatness does not